All right, guys. Tommy here with Sports Talk Roulette, the man behind the scenes. And today we got Zane with us. We're going to be talking a little bit about the NFL. Thursday Night Football happened last night. Some topics in the NBA we want to go over as well. But first, make sure you guys hit the like and subscribe button, comment. We love to engage with the followers we do have. Any kind of debate we're up for. Sometimes we make mistakes in the things we say. Sometimes our takes aren't wrong. Or are wrong. Sometimes they're right, but go with the flow. This is all about having a discussion, having a debate, and yeah, we're gonna get right into it. Thursday Night Football. It was everyone was going for the under, Zane. Everybody was going for the under in that game, and it was the complete opposite of the under. The Raiders took care of the Chargers 63-21. 63-21. I mean, it was over before it started. It was 21-0 in the first quarter.
I mean, what should they do? Do they need to fire Brandon Staley?
I said this on my episode the other day, and I said with or without Justin Herbert, the Chargers are in trouble. He's their franchise QB, but they just have no offensive rhythm, and this proved it. I mean, they tried to get Austin Eckler involved, but it was just at one point it was just such a predictable offense. But less about the Chargers, more about the Raiders, right? I think all credit goes to Antonio Pierce. What a great job he's doing for the Las Vegas Raiders. I mean, he should be locked up as their head coach for the foreseeable future. He has the players involved. Devontae Adams is vibing on the sidelines. If you look at him 4 or 5 weeks ago, it's the complete opposite for Devontae Adams. And shout out to Aiden O'Connell. 20 for 34, 248 yards, and 4 touchdowns. I mean, at one point it was just a blowout, so they were just getting whatever they wanted. But what a performance by Aiden O'Connell! I mean, if he's going for a QB job next year for this team, Jimmy G is just going to be watching on the sidelines. I mean, Jimmy G last year, year before with the Niners, watches Brock Purdy take over. He goes to the Raiders, has an unfortunate performance, a little bit of an injury problem, and then Aiden O'Connell takes over. Now he's watching another QB take his job. So yeah, it was 63-21, man. What a game. And the Raiders, I mean, they have a chance to make a push for the playoffs. They could be a team that no one wants to see in the playoffs. They do have a tough road ahead. They got to play the Chiefs, the Colts, and the Broncos. They pretty much have to win out to have a chance at a playoff spot. They have to win out for sure.
Yep. Well, speaking of QBs, what were your thoughts on Cam Newton saying that Brock, Dak, Tua, and Jared Goff are just system QBs? Do you agree?
All right. So before I even agree or disagree with anything, Cam Newton is a guy where he's allowed to say whatever he wants. He was a Heisman winner. He was an MVP. He made it to the Super Bowl. He's obviously a game changer, right? Everyone was showing the stats with Cam Newton compared to Dak Prescott and saying Dak Prescott has had a better career than Cam Newton, but they're not counting any of his rushing yards or rushing TDs. So whether I agree with that statement or not, and I'm not sure if I agree about the Brock Purdy part, I'm not sure if I agree with the Dak Prescott part, maybe the Jared Goff, maybe the Tua Tagovailoa, because Tyreek Hill is the MVP of that team, but Cam Newton can say whatever he wants. If he wants to have a take, what are we to say anything about his takes? We're here having a debate on a podcast. There's analysts that are saying whatever they want left and right, and you're telling me Cam Newton, who did this in the NFL, who has seen hands-on from the quarterback position, you're telling me he can't have his take and people are grilling him, and I just think that's wild to me to grill Cam Newton for that. He can say, give him the floor. I mean, let him talk, let him speak his piece. I don't see why he can't do that.
Yep, I agree. I mean, he has a resume to talk. I mean, you have guys on TV that have never played the sport going off on these athletes. I mean, this week, I heard Stephen A. call Zion fat. I heard – I'm hearing all sorts of ridiculous things. I think my favorite part is – what was that?
Eat the table, right? That's what he said.
Which is crazy because Zion, I mean, he's one of the best athletes in the world. I know he looks a little out of shape, but if you have these analysts calling these guys fat and crossing the line, I mean, what Cam Newton said is nothing compared to that.
I completely agree. And if your mind's not clear enough on this and you don't think QBs who have performed in the NFL can make their own takes and your mind's not clear on the situation, get yourself some Vive, okay? Vive smelling salts little pocket size, little wakefulness in the morning. Just shake it up, pop it open, take a little sniff, a little hit, and wakes you up for your day. Great thing, especially if you're early riser and you want to get a good kickstart to your day. Get Vive, myvive.com, 15% off Tommy15 discount code. Check that out. But yeah, if you don't have any mental clarity on this situation, go with Vive. But yeah, so moving on to the NBA, we got a good big week 15 coming up in the NFL. We'll get to that on our next episode. But for the NBA right now, Draymond Green is the talk of the town. He's suspended indefinitely, and I'm not here to grill Draymond Green by any means. Obviously, what he's doing, I don't like to see it for the sport of, and the players in the NBA, the coaches, they don't like to see it. But at the same time, I hope he gets help. Obviously, he needs some kind of help outside, maybe therapy, maybe someone needs to step in and help lead for him. But it sucks to see this for the Warriors because they brought Draymond Green back on a 4-year, $100 million deal. They brought this whole team back, and it's not looking good for the Warriors. I mean, they're wasting the last years of Steph Curry's prime. If this team was a little bit better, we'd be talking about Steph Curry as the MVP of the league.
And this goes way back. Remember when they were playing the Cavs in the finals back in 2016, Draymond had that incident. He gets suspended. They end up losing the series. Draymond helped them get KD, and then he calls KD the B word on the court. KD admitted on First Take that was one of the reasons he left the Warriors. Then you have that whole Jordan Poole incident where he practically knocks him out. The Warriors still had his back. Remember, they didn't suspend him. They said, we want you to be there for ring night. And they brought him back, let him get his ring. Jordan Poole's gone. Now this, if I'm Steve Kerr, Steph, I'm hopping on a phone call and I'm figuring out what are we doing? Because Clay and Wiggins don't look like Clay and Wiggins. Draymond's causing these issues. Steph is still Steph. And if I'm Steph, I'm taking a hard look in the mirror and saying, should I just request a trade? Or are the Warriors going to do something about this?
Yeah, it's tough for Steph to request a trade. I think he's one of the few untradeable players in the NBA. I just don't know what kind of package you'd be able to get for Steph. I just think it's tough. I mean, we just found out the other day the Warriors offered Clay a 2-year, $48 million deal in the summer, and that's not enough for what Clay's looking for. He wants something more long-term. You just gave Draymond 4-year, $100 million. I don't know where the Warriors go from here. We've talked about this a few times already. They're in an extremely tough position. They're not looking at a playoff spot as of right now if they're going to perform like this. And Draymond's a big impact on that team. He's not a guy that's going to score a lot. He's going to be that tough guy, and that's what they need. But even with Draymond Green in the lineup, you look at this Warriors team top to bottom, and they're not scary anymore. They're not. And you look at the deal they made to get CP3. I think moving away from Jordan Poole was the good move. But this team is not as scary as it used to be. Nothing scares me on this Warriors team. You lock down Steph Curry or you let him go off for 40. You can settle for everyone else doing their thing because it's not enough anymore. So I'm not sure what moves they have left.
I agree. But speaking of California teams, the Los Angeles Lakers went undefeated in this tourney run, won the championship. LeBron James, obviously the MVP of the whole tournament. What were your takeaways? And keep it real with me now. Give them some props.
So I have nothing bad to say about this Lakers team at all. I think what I told you multiple times this year and going into the season that Anthony Davis needs to take over, and Anthony Davis has been taking over. I think he's at 3 straight games with over 35 points. He's shooting at a high percentage from the field. I think he's performing exactly how he needs to be for this Lakers team. And I loved what I saw from the Lakers in the in-season tournament. I think it's great for the young players in general, not just for the Lakers in general. I think we said this too before with the teams that aren't usually in that playoff spot later in the season. I think this was great to kind of get that rhythm and that feel for a playoff-like atmosphere, right? I think a lot of players were a little, weirded out by this tournament. A lot of fans were weirded out, but I think it turned out better than they expected, honestly. I think the players bought into it. I think the coaches bought into it. I think the fans bought into it. So I really liked this in-season tournament. regardless of what we thought about it going in. I thought it was great, honestly. And I don't want to hear LeBron did something MJ didn't, because this in-season tournament didn't exist till this year. So don't be getting on here telling me LeBron did something MJ didn't.
No, for sure. I mean, I think with LeBron, it's such a tough spot to be in because if you win, you hear things like, "Oh, why are you guys raising a banner? This doesn't mean anything." And then if he loses, they're just going to say, "Oh, you couldn't even win this." So I feel like for LeBron, it was a great in-season accomplishment. He was able to rally this team together. Vandy came back. He's been playing great defense. But looking forward, what are your thoughts on the Lakers making another move, maybe by the All-Star break, to try to make a run for one of the top seeds in the West?
Yeah, we said this before. I think Zach LaVine has one foot out the door right now. I know it's been rumored for him to the Lakers. I think that's a great fit for the Lakers as long as they can find a way to use him properly in their system right now, right? Zach LaVine loves to score the ball. If LeBron can tap into his potential more, I think LeBron can just sit back and be that high IQ basketball player and almost be like a game manager, honestly. He's trying to do that right now with AD. Just imagine LeBron coming up to the court with AD in the paint and Zach LaVine on his left. I mean, that's a scary team. No matter where the Lakers finish in the standings, that's a scary playoff team because LeBron will bring a lot of maturity to Zach LaVine. I think that's what Zach LaVine is lacking right now, a little bit of growth and maturity as far as that on the basketball court. And I think LeBron's going to bring that for Zach LaVine. I think that's a great move if they can bring him in. Without that, I think they're still going to be very competitive in the West. I just think they're missing that one piece, and I think Zach LaVine answers that.
I agree. Another player to watch out for, speaking of the Bulls, is Caruso, because I know the Bulls love him, but if you're shipping Levine out, you might need to include him in a package. And if I'm the Lakers, I need to be okay with parting with Reeves. I love Austin Reeves, but if I'm the Bulls, I want someone young back if I'm giving you Zach LaVine.
Yeah, I can see that for sure. I think the Bulls have to get some draft picks. They have to get some young talent. I think it's a no-brainer for the Lakers, though. I think if they're going to bring Zach LaVine in, even without Caruso, I think you make that trade, even if it costs you Austin Reeves. I love Austin Reeves, just like you said, but I think you make that deal in a heartbeat if the Bulls are offering you LaVine and you're going to give him back a couple draft picks, Austin Reeves. You might get a Caruso back. You might get someone else back. So I think you can get Patrick Williams, Mr. 200 million, if you want. Um, but yeah, so I think that's a great move for them. And right now, I think Detroit got lucked out with that. What was that deal with? What was that wing deal? 5 free wings. They win again. What was that with Wingstop? Right. That's what it
Yep,
was.
5 free wings for every Pistons win. I mean, Wingstop's not losing any money because those guys have lost 21 in a row. I mean, that's crazy to even think about. Are you like not even trying? Put in some effort and win at least one or two games here and there. What are your thoughts on them?
I think it's tough. I think you can go top to bottom and pick and choose different areas they need to work on. But when a team is on a 21 game losing streak like the Pistons, you just got to grind one out and win a game. I mean, they've been in some close games. They just haven't been able to close the door. They're going to win a couple games, right? They're going to go on hopefully a streak soon, but they have the Sixers, the Bucks, the Hawks, the Jazz, the Nets twice, and the Celtics. They just lost to the Sixers by I think it was 18, and they got to go play the Bucks. Giannis just dropped 64. They got to play the Hawks and Trae Young. So it's tough, man. I mean, maybe that Jazz Nets 3 game stretch right there, that might be one where they could pull it out. Maybe they pull off an upset against the Sixers since it's a back-to-back. I can see this going at least 23, 24 games before Detroit sees any kind of wing deal come their way.
You saw how badly Giannis wanted that game ball after dropping 64, right? If he drops
Yeah.
70 on the Pistons, you got to build a mini Giannis statue in the stadium.
Honestly though, why isn't anybody talking? So everyone's on the Pistons. I've seen memes. I've seen people making jokes about the Pistons. I know the Spurs are young, but why is no one talking about the Spurs 18-game losing streak? All the hype was around Wemby. They have a great coach in Greg Popovich. I'm not saying it's his fault, but all this hype around Wemby, and they're 3-20, and they have 18 game. Like, we're throwing shade at the Pistons, but we're not throwing any shade at the Spurs. I think we got to talk about the Spurs a little bit too. If they're going to be on a losing streak like this, there's no excuses for them too. They should be winning a few games, especially with how talented Wemby is. They have a lot of young talent on that team. So I just think it's wrong to give all the shade to the Pistons and not at least talk about how the Spurs are on that losing streak as well.
For sure. And then when you think about Rookie of the Year, do you give it to Wemby, who's barely won any games, or do you look at Chet because his team OKC is second place in the West? I mean, I know they have a better roster. They have Shea and
Yeah.
Josh Giddey, and that team is a little bit better than the Spurs. But still, I mean, that has to factor into your Rookie of the Year votings.
Yeah, 100. I think Chet Holmgren. I said it earlier in the season. I think he's the MVP favorite. Whether no matter what the odds were, I saw him as my favorite going in, just because he got hurt that first year. I think he grew a lot into this season. So I think unless the Spurs go on a crazy outburst and start getting a lot of wins, I mean Wemby's still doing his thing. He's performing really well, but I think, like you said, the Thunder have a better overall team. So I think just just because of that, I think Chet Holmgren wins Rookie of the Year as
Yep.
long as we stay on this pace, right? I think Chet Holmgren is the undoubtedly going to win Rookie of the Year 100%.
Yep. I agree.
And coming up soon, John Morant is going to be back. I think it's like only a couple more games. John Morant's going to be back. The Grizzlies are sitting at 6-17 right now. What kind of impact do we think John Morant's going to have? Is it going to be immediate impact? Like this Grizzlies team is going to jump up in the standings, or is it going to take some time to get back into a rhythm?
No, I'm going to say immediate because they have the right pieces. They brought in Marcus Smart. I believe he's hurt going through an injury, but he'll be back. You have D Rose there to help mentor Ja. And remember, this team was in the second place last year. So I think they're going to shoot right up. I think Ja's going to go crazy. I wouldn't even be surprised if he's an all-star this year. Even though there's a very short amount of time left between now and February, I'm expecting Ja to go crazy when he comes back. What do you think?
Yeah, as long as he hits, I think there's a minimum requirement for games for All Star. As long as he hits that requirement, I think I agree. And I think if you look at the standings right now, I think they're better than the Utah Jazz. I think they're going to be better than the Golden State Warriors. I think they'll be better than the Pelicans. I think they'll be better than the Rockets, and I think overall they'll be as good or better than the Kings. So I mean, there's 5 teams right there that I think they'll jump in the standings once Ja gets back up to being Ja. But it is an uphill battle. I mean, 6-17. That's 17 losses against you already, so that's a little tough. You would have liked to seen the Grizzlies get up to 10 wins before Ja Morant gets back, but I think 100% they're going to jump up in the standings. I think they'll compete in the West, especially with where some of these teams are. But I think it's still going to be an uphill battle. I'm not going to say they're going to jump up immediately, but I think they're better than some of these teams. I don't think they're better than the Clippers, though. I know the Clippers are only 14-10, but they're on a 6-game winning streak right now. I think that's going to be a tough team for them. I think they'll be right on par with the Clippers, but the Clippers have so much firepower.
I agree. I mean, James Harden had a historic night tonight, hit 25,000 career points. That team is starting to figure it out. Russ coming off the bench, and then the way they finish games off with Russ, PG, Kawhi, and Harden, you have Zubac in the paint. I mean, that team, once they really get clicking, it's going to be hard to beat them.
I agree. I think we said this a few times already, and if you've watched some of our takes already, I think the West is it's a really tough conference right now. I think those top 8 teams, it's going to be tough going. The Grizzlies got to step it up, and the Clippers are definitely finding a groove. I like what I'm seeing from Paul George. I like what I'm seeing from Kawhi. James Harden's fitting in, like you said. Russell Westbrook's finding his role. I like what I'm seeing from that team a lot. So yeah, we'll see what the Grizzlies can do. I'm excited to see John Morant back. He's a highlight reel waiting to happen. So I'm really happy that he's going to be back and hopefully dominating the West again. But yeah, so thank you guys so much for coming on. Hopefully you're still here with us. We appreciate you guys. Look for another episode coming up for some predictions for NFL Week 15. Zane, thank you for coming on today. Really appreciate it. If you guys sure you guys like, follow, subscribe, comment on all platforms right now. We'd love to have a debate or have a discussion with you guys in the comments. So thank you guys so much, and tune in next time.